Cool. So we are hanging out now. What's up, y'all? It's
Okay.
Chris. This is Tami. You,
Hi.
you just hiccup?
I, no, I started talking on top of you, but I'm gonna lie and say that I did hiccup.
Oh, well, God bless you. And
Ooh.
thank you for being here. We are talking about my new book. It's called How to Build a Comedy Scene from Scratch. And I wanted to talk to you specifically about it because, I feel like this, we're the ones who did this together. I wrote the book, but this is stuff that we did together the whole time. But you wrote the foreword for it, which was very sweet. And I read it. I read it whenever I'm feeling down because it makes me feel really sweet. So there's a moment of vulnerability. Thank you for writing the foreword.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was fun and remarkably easy because I've thought about your process of everything that you do in the comedy world for over a decade and marveled at it. So being able to put that all down in words was incredibly simple. It was a very easy task.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much. My favorite, something else you did for the book was you made a couple of editing passes and you suggested I add something that I think was my favorite thing to add. And that's how I want to start off this conversation without giving too much away for the book because I want people to check it out for themselves. But we used to have a show at our Austin theater, our first Austin theater, in this tiny, tiny little building that what was it before? It was a laundromat. It was a laundromat. And we turned it into a comedy theater. And we had a show called Block Party. And during this show, a lot of crazy things happened. It was an anything goes open mic night. And you were like, Chris, why didn't you include this in your book? Do you remember what that was?
No, I don't.
It was Milo sticking his hand through a dead fish.
Yeah. Okay. There were so many things. Milo also lit a plastic baby doll head on fire. So it kind of occupies the same space of like all the crazy things that happened at Rosewood, um, revolving around Milo. I wasn't sure what you're gonna say, but yeah, of course, that was grotesque.
Yeah, so the reason why I talk about Block Party in the book is because one of my big premises is a comedy scene is defined by, having a clubhouse, a flagship show, and then also a home base. And so for us, the clubhouse is the show that has no barrier to entry. That's how I defined it. And so for us, that show was Block Party. It was every Thursday night at 9:30. Anyone could show up, sign their name up, just like a regular open mic, but we really encourage people to do anything besides stand up, which is what most open mic comedy shows are. And so that naturally ended up gifting us with all kinds of things, like the time Milo stuck his hand through a dead fish and did a puppet show.
And it was a really great momentum builder for a lot of the performers and students that were hanging around there every week. There would be people that would work on the 5 to 7 minutes that they would be doing on stage at Block Party. They'd work on it all week or sometimes for a couple weeks, building sets and like tunnels to crawl through and do crazy lighting and have music. It's like it's an open mic essentially, but people put so much time and love and effort into it. I think it really got a lot of other people very excited about being bold and trying something totally different, something that they wouldn't have even thought of doing on stage before.
Yeah, and to be clear, I go into this more in the book, but we're not saying that you have to have a bonkers, unhinged, out of control show like this in order to have a clubhouse. That's just what felt right and what organically happened in our universe. Your clubhouse can be anything as long as it includes a ton of people and there's no like gatekeepers really. For us, the gatekeeper was like, just don't be an asshole. Like as long as
Yeah.
you weren't a jerk, a problem person, you could come on our stage and do anything. And people sure as hell did. I also define other examples of clubhouses as like an improv jam. I mean, just straight up having an improv jam where anyone can show up and do improv, that's a clubhouse. And for sketch comedy writing, it's like a writer's table where like anyone can come, write, contribute ideas, and you just do it. That's how you cultivate a scene. Were there any other big standout clubhouse type things that you remember from our past?
Sure. I mean, I think that the thing that we were really good at, and I don't mind tooting our little horns about that, is we were so in love with that theater. We were so in love with our community. It was so exciting to just be in it all the time, right? So we had our fingers on the pulse of what was going on in that community, what people wanted to do, and what they were able to do, where we could push people. So we weren't trying to force people into shows that we wanted to do and then try and create some kind of momentum behind it. It was very much us, like you said earlier, being organic, kind of paying attention to what the vibe was, and then offering opportunities to showcase what was already kind of going on naturally within the community. The like more structured, silly shows, whatever that basketball one was that you did.
Oh, it had a couple of different names, but I did a basketball themed improv show. At first it was called Make It, Take It, but then we called it Yes and One, because and one is a popular basketball street ball culture program. And but yeah, everyone had to wear a basketball uniform. I was the coach, and we basically did a basketball game as an improv show with a tip off and timeouts and drawing up plays. Again, a very stupid show that was a ton of fun.
But yeah, that's the point, is that like whatever was going on and like floating in the ether of the community at that time, I remember watching that show, and I mean, everybody around, I mean, this tiny little theater, I mean, it was like 1,000 square feet. It was packed and people were losing their shit. And it was such a dumb show. And like the improv was horrible, but everybody was losing their shit. It was like, that's just because people wanted that kind of playful, silly experimentation, and to have it led by you, I think like this is an important thing for other people who are running or starting their own comedy scenes. Like, make sure that you're putting people in charge of things that can really handle it, and like I think that show with somebody that's not as experienced as you were with hosting and with running shows could have been a nightmare. But because you did have so much experience being, kind of the guide that takes people through shows, it was able to be as impactful as it was.
Yeah, it's tricky because obviously I have done, I have screwed up, enough times before that, doing really half-baked, quarter-baked shows at best, and just
for sure,
leaving all the experience doing that and then learning from them and just like never stopping, just being relentless with experimentation, but also learning from every single time it didn't work. So, for anyone watching this who is thinking about, building your comedy scene in your town, be cool with it not going well for a while. Luckily, a lot of our screw ups happened before we opened up our own venue. So it was like, a lot of pickup shows around town or in previous venues or whatever. So the new movement, when we opened in 2009, it felt like it was like, okay, all those experiences, all the successes, failures, whatever, and everything in between all led up to this, masterpiece-ish of a performance venue.
Yeah, and just a little tidbit of advice that I'd like to throw out there from watching so many years and years and years of different kinds of programming at different places. A really shitty show that's like going off the rails, not working. If you commit, that show is so much better than if you're letting the audience see a sweat. So like in that experimentation, commit to your bullshit, just like if you act like this is what you're doing and it's fine and this is what I intended, or I'm recognizing it's not going well, but I'm not going to let them see me sweat. I'm going to be unflappable. I think the opportunity to take lessons out of that experience aren't going to be blocked and clouded by the horror coming off stage and be like, that was a shit show. Now I can't think of anything that I liked about it. But like just having a good attitude even in your failures, I think is so helpful for expansion and growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have done shows with people, I don't want to name any names, but I've done shows with people who look horrified between scenes, or like during the show, they like are hiding behind whatever you can hide behind. And it's like, and it's bad energy. You got to just keep going, keep
For
putting stuff
sure.
out there, keep building, and then you will find the good stuff. Okay. So another thing that I talk about in the book that I wanted to touch on with you, we can skip over the concept of having a home base. I think it's an important thing in a comedy scene to have a home base. Pick up the book, which if you're watching this video, this book is available now. I made the audiobook version, my very first audiobook. I love audiobooks, and I finally recorded my own audiobook. You recorded the foreword, so you can hear both these voices on the audiobook, or you can buy the ebook, whatever you want to. But we talk about home bases a lot, but I want to talk with you about flagship shows. To me, that's the next big thing in building a comedy scene. Is everyone needs a flagship show, and the way that I define a flagship show is like the one that everyone wants to be a part of. It's the one that you build to. It's the one that when people come to the theater, if they're looking at a schedule, they're like, what show am I going to? That's their first choice. Or if you are if you are getting involved, you're taking improv classes, or you're an up and coming stand-up comic, whatever the thing is, you're like, what show should I be at? What show do I want to show my face at, learn the most from? It's the flagship show. And not necessarily the best show, not necessarily the most popular show. I mean, it could be the other things, but the flagship show is just the one that that's drawing the right energy to it. What do you remember as being the flagship shows from the new movement when we first opened?
Well, obviously the Megaphone show. Um, that was kind of the opposite of what we were talking about with like Block Party, right? The Megaphone show, we'd invite guests that were like kind of local movers and shakers to come and tell stories for our cast to then improvise scenes from. And that was kind of more of a bringer show for exposing people who wouldn't necessarily regularly come to the theater. When the guests would come, they would bring their friends to come and watch them tell stories, and it would expose this whole other part of the city to what we were doing there. So the cast had to be tight. It had to be relatable. It had to be, spot on and well timed and no floundering, which it accomplished for years and years and years. It's wonderful. But that one is totally different kind of a vibe, right? That flagship kind of like, this is the show that's going to bring in a brand new audience possibly to your space.
Yeah, it was like, okay, we're talking to someone and they say, okay, what show should I come see at the theater? It's like, okay, well, let's figure out what kind of person you are. And we usually would send you to the Clubhouse show or to the flagship. And it was really badass that both those things were under the same roof with the same people in charge. Not always the same people on stage, but yeah, the Megaphone show, for those of you who know improv lingo, it was in Armando, but we were very, very tight with our mapping from the stories, and we never had performers, or we very rarely had performers tell the story, because we wanted the person who opened the cupcake shop downtown to come and be a storyteller and comedian for a day. We didn't want the lead singer of this band who's already promoting shows all over town. So we went into the perimeter of the world of the city to find these people to tell stories. But yeah, people would come to that show. Oh, on top of that, we made it free. Like our flagship show was free, which was really bold, if I may say. And I explained why we did that and how the inspiration for all that in the book. But we made that show free. And so what we saw happen was people would come in the audience. The show was usually very good. It was very good. And people would be inspired and they would say, I want to do that. How do I do that? And then we would invite them to an improv class, which we also did free improv classes before that show. They would come and try an improv class and they would be like, okay, I'm in, the whole time thinking that they wanted to be a part of the Flagship Show, which is again called the Megaphone Show. So it created this system that was very helpful for building a scene, because it had something for people to work towards. It had something for people to learn from. And a lot of the people who like earned their spot in that show had a lot to do with changing that show moving forward. So it's not like we created this thing and it was this thing forever and people just went through it. It's like, no, people came into it. It changed for them. They inspired it, and then they moved on, or the show morphed, and then more people came through, and it was this really beautiful, fun thing. And I think every comedy scene needs some sort of flagship show. And the bigger your comedy scene, the more flagships there are. When I talk about us in Austin at this time, I'm talking about our flagship show was the Megaphone Show. But of course, in a giant scene like New York or Chicago, there's going to be many. It probably is a flagship show every night of the week.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that?
I think the important thing that you brought up, and I'd like to highlight, is letting the shows evolve, letting it change. When people are holding on too tight to their ideas, and not letting the incredible talent that's playing in your show, committing to rehearsals and performances and bringing friends and etc. When you're not letting them influence the show, I think it just kind of it stunts it in a lot of different ways, right? And the way that our shows evolved, the way that our classes evolved, the way that everything that we did with the new movement for over a decade was so influenced by what the community was contributing.
For sure, yeah. I mean, and just like with our own stuff, a lot of wins, some losses, but everything was a learning experience. And we were forever in this flow of experimenting and then like celebrating when we found the thing and doing the hell out of it. And that's actually one of the big chapters in the book that I'm most proud of. It's called Celebrate Your Progress. And I think it's maybe it's the New Orleans in us, but we've always been very good at celebrating the big moments and even like the not so big moments, and like building a culture around anniversaries and half anniversaries and like 100 shows, and how many different ways can we celebrate these things. So all of this information is in this book. This book is called How to Build a Comedy Scene from Scratch. I wrote it. Tami Nelson wrote the foreword and edited the book, and had as much to do with what's in this book as I did. And yeah, hey, thanks for hanging out and chatting. I know we can do this for hours, but we're trying to not do it for hours. If you want to hear more, go grab the book. But any other final thoughts from you, Tami Nelson?
Well, I think that book, the title is How to Start a Comedy Scene from Scratch, but I think really anybody who is in any comedy scene will pull something from it. It's like taking day one, level one class, even if you've been performing improv for 20 years, go take a level one improv class, because you're going to get something new out of it again. Same thing with the book. You're going to get something out of it.
Love it. Thanks for your time.
Sure.
Cool.